I think that like the stories can be kind of confusing. Like they change kind of unevenly. Like it goes from Moses to Noah and stuff like that.
Well, a lot of the Bible is confusing and hard to understand. Things that have been explained to me by someone else, I understand or find easier to understand. But usually stuff that I read on my own and try to interpret by myself is really confusing.
I don't really get how they have a New Testament and Old Testament. I haven't really figured that out.
That it goes from if you do something good, you get to go to heaven. If you do something bad, you get to go to down there.
Probably itself, because everything seems like riddles to me that I can never get the answer to, so it's just really hard to read because everything's like in poems or something.
How they just end with one story and just switch off to another, it's just kind of confusing about that.
How like they go from one person, like Moses, and they talk about all his sons, and then they talk about a new person.
I think it's when they use really difficult words to understand, because it's like way back then and they're like using all these words that I don't understand, and you can't really get the concept out of it when they're just talking all weird.
See, the book of Leviticus, it's like, oh, if you mold stuff in your house, whatever, then you have to kill 5 cows and go get the holy water or whatever and wait for 5 years, and then maybe you can become clean again. Maybe if the elders say, sure. There's some pretty confusing stuff in there, and it's just like, okay, does this relate at all to anything in my life?
The book of Revelation, a lot of weird stuff going on there. A double-edged sword as a tongue, and it's an end of the world, and the different churches. So it's really confusing. I don't know what to make out of it. And
I think the very beginning of it, where it's explaining how there was nothing before God, and there was just like him, and when he explains like how he's making everything, it's like, well, then if there was no light and there was no dark, then how is there God, and how is he making this stuff, and what really happened? And it's hard to listen to all like the scientific explanations when you have the Bible explaining all this other stuff and you don't know if the scientific stuff is the Bible.
I think a lot of the Bible itself is actually hard to understand, just the way it's written, because of how long ago it was, the different language, and interpreting it in the different ways that you can interpret what it's saying. And so.
Okay. What about the Bible is hard to understand?
Well, it has a lot of vague terms. Like, it's not very distinct. It doesn't say, like, do this, don't do this. You have to, like, analyze it a lot.
What's hard to understand in the Bible for me is basically just trying to understand, like, what it's saying. Like, I read it and I try to comprehend it, but I just have trouble every now and then on, like, the big words or when there's multiple people talking in one passage.
I think for me, what makes it hard to understand is that we were forgiven almost easily. Of course, it meant that Jesus had to die for us, but it still seems too easy and almost like there's still a catch somewhere.